No.
Good evening, Melrosians the world over. I'm Tom Catalini.
I'm Sam Hammer.
I'm Tom Shampoo.
And I'm Jen LeClaire.
And this is Let's Talk Melrose. Melrose, it's a show where Melrosians talk to Melrosians about Melrose and who looks sexier shoveling out than... Right? The man who lives inside a Christmas card, the man who represents the weather and all things
Can't see me
and desirable.
back there, yeah.
He's off in the distance, standing back.
Sipping my cocoa.
Yeah.
I did.
My mulled wine.
When I got that, I did zoom in to see
Yes.
what his face was doing.
What was my face doing?
You were very pleased to have your portrait taken.
That is
I was walking around in the store, so I doing one of these work from home things, and
Yep.
you know, every 24 hours or so, I try and go out and get some fresh air. So I was doing some shoveling and cleaning up out front. That's all I did, and then I was like, I'm going to take a walk around the block, and it was a beautiful scene in Melrose. And I look up and I see this gorgeously decorated house with the fresh snowfall. And I'm like, I don't know how this scene can get more beautiful. And then emerging from the front door is Tom Shampoo. And I'm like, okay, we're at the next level.
There you go. It's as easy as that, right?
It is a hallmark. I think you should, if that doesn't arrive in my mailbox next year for Christmas for a holiday card.
I want two cards. I want two cards from the shampoo. One with the family, the thing you did this year, which was nice, and then a separate one that's just you.
Just that one. Yeah.
But I have to have more than just one picture of me. It has to be a whole bunch of pictures of me throughout
Could
the
be a
year.
collage.
12 Toms.
Oh, the four seasons.
Wow. Now you're talking calendar. 12
Right?
Toms. Yeah.
Oh, we still have those pictures, actually. They're going to resurrect the Men of Melrose calendar.
Oh, yeah. We should put one together.
But those men only live in the neighborhood.
We could make dozens of dollars.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one where Snapfish called you up and said, "Yeah, we don't do that. Some things we don't." Did you read the terms and conditions when you clicked OK?
Please don't call us back again.
So later on in the show, we're going to have the folks from the Melrose Ed Foundation. We'll run that by them to see if they're looking for new fundraiser ideas. Oh, they already have their first customer.
Yes.
Look at that.
Oh my goodness!
All right,
Did
so
everybody?
First customer.
I'm anxious to talk to Jess and Lory from the Melrose Ed Foundation. They're going to be with us a little bit later, so let's get into the news.
Yes.
Right away. Here we are. Well, if you did not see, shovels were in the ground last week. Construction has begun on the library renovation. This will be sort of two parts, I believe. One is the preserving the historic front facade of the original building, which is 1910 or somewhere in that range. It's a Carnegie Mellon design, I think, or some such thing. But also removing and replacing the addition that was built in the early 60s, I believe. So this is the renovation that the library grant, the state grant came through for about $8.1 million. And then the library commissioners from Melrose also added $2.2 million to that. And then the city is going to be putting a bond together for $10.8 million, and the total budget was $21 million. And then COVID hit. So that meant some changes to supply chains and different kinds of issues. So the budget or the estimated costs are scheduled to or expected to go up by 10-12% so far. It might go more than that. We'll see. But right now, the initial estimates are 12% higher than the original $21 million budget. But they are started, and it's very exciting to see. All the dignitaries were there. And the ground is being removed, and renovations will begin.
So estimated completion
Sorry?
They're really expecting to complete this by spring 2024. That's like a year and a little
That's
piece.
Yeah.
a year and a yeah. That's what people say. You know, I always feel like it's always longer than they say.
It never is.
I heard
Never.
it was always about an 18-month project, which I agree is that sounds pretty speedy. So if it's even anywhere around if it's anywhere under 2 years, I think that would be pretty impressive. So I'm excited.
Here's the judge that I always use, the gauge, I should say, that I always use. The Empire State Building broke ground and then opened 88 stories, opened 14 months later.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
That's how it should be.
That's
The
how
Empire
we
State
did
Building
it.
was about 14, 15 months and it was open. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's
we
it.
used
Back
to
in
do
the
it.
day.
back in the 30s, man, people were dying of work. It was crazy.
That's a good that would be a good trivia fact a trivia question. How long did it take?
According to Tom Shampoo.
I would never guess that. Yeah.
I think in the spring we're doing a live show from the Melrose Public Library on the refurb
hole in the
Wi-Fi. Yeah,
From the 86th floor.
from the 86th floor.
Right.
Speaking of 86th floor, our public safety buildings are coming up for discussion. They were in the news a few weeks ago. There was a whistleblower spotlight that came out on one of our firehouses. I hear that MMTV has some pretty compelling videos on their YouTube channel where you can see more of the conditions of these buildings. So I'll put that in our chat. And then also there's a lot of information on the Public Safety Building Committee's website that they launched. All right, let's hope that works. If not,
There you go.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to check out those MMTV videos. They're tours of the buildings by our public safety leadership themselves. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. It's like a walkthrough of someone's house, and I'd read the articles, right? I read that. I don't know that I fully watched the NBC thing that aired, but I've read articles. I've heard what the city has put out in statements and stuff. But watching the walkthrough of that, it's really quite compelling. It's really it's no joke how the state of disrepair that those buildings are in. It was way more than I could envision in just kind of reading about it. It's pretty shocking, actually. So
I think everyone would agree with that. I mean, nobody says things are fine. I think it is definitely a wide agreement on that point.
Yeah, and I say that not to be critical. I say that as like, there's clearly a need. I know it's not an easy solution. I know we have to kind of figure out how to fund all this stuff, but it's not sensational. It's real, and we got to figure out how to fund these projects. So
yeah,
agreed.
Well, speaking of creative funding ideas, what if you could take, Jen? What if you could take some of the gifts I've given you that you don't particularly like and haven't used yet, that are probably lying around the house?
Yeah.
And what if you could turn that into money to benefit the bridge in Melrose? Oh, that's priceless. Excuse me.
Priceless. Please.
Excuse me. So the bridge.
Yes, that's got it.
Why do you have that?
I don't know.
Disembodied hand.
Yes, go on.
Okay, so the bridge, we all know the bridge, right? A school community partnership in Melrose, volunteers in the school system, right? They're doing their annual trivia bee, and they need funds, right? Mm-hmm. So they have a let me see, what's it called? A bridge bin is located on 177 Bellevue Avenue. And what you do is you take your stuff that I've given you, Jen, that you don't like, and you put it in this bin. Then they will take it and make gift baskets and raffle prizes out of it for the trivia bee and the events that they run. So
it's like a reduce, reuse, recycle type of fundraiser. I love this idea, actually. I do want to clarify, though, that I think they are looking for, new, new, shiny and new objects. And
yeah, right.
Or gently or unused objects.
Yeah.
Like the Tom Kiely coffee mug he may have given me.
So what
Whatever.
they're asking you literally is to hunt through your home for those new items that weren't quite right for one reason or another. Maybe you missed the return window of an online purchase and now the item sits in the back of your closet. Maybe you received a present and loved the thought, but not so much the gift. So one person's crappy gift could be somebody else's gift basket.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cherished forever.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I thought that was creative. So the bin will be at 177 Bellevue ongoing. I don't know until further notice. Between now and March 4th. That's what it is.
Until further notice or March 4th.
Whichever comes first.
Whichever comes first.
All right.
Do you have anything? I'm trying to think if I have anything.
I'm sure everybody has something around the house that they could probably
I
do.
found something precious.
Don't even.
Wow.
That's priceless.
Oh my goodness.
What are you,
One of those
crazy?
right there.
That is priceless.
Mine's on the mantle right there.
Yeah, me too. It's right behind me. Right there.
Mine's downstairs.
Oh,
Mine's
this is-
downstairs where I see
This
it
is
more
different.
often.
This is from the Lincoln
Oh, you have
winter
more
shop.
than one of those things?
Mine
Yes, we-
is. Oh, you have more. I don't know. Mine is from our
That's not mine.
award.
Yeah.
That's mine is from this show, from the award
Right.
we won
You won
together,
together.
and
Right.
it's prominently featured in every work from home Zoom call I ever had.
I can see the LTMM were the champions at Family Feud, first ever Family Feud at the Memorial Hall, some couple of years ago, I guess, 3 minutes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
That was so fun. That has to come back.
it does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
They've moved on. Their new fundraiser is the left, right, center game, which is fun and
This is
lighter
actually this is a
like-
fun game. Yeah.
It's a lighter lift for them, I'm sure. But Family Feud was really fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Left, right, center is a fun game. I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys have ever played that.
I have played that. It is fun.
It's not.
Okay. Are we moving on? Is that it for the news? We
I
got some
I
exciting
think it is.
guests here.
Let's move
Yeah.
on to the guests.
Yay!
Hey,
Welcome, Jess Dugan and Lory Huff. Jess is with the Melrose Ed Foundation, and Lory is accompanying her tonight to talk about an upcoming event that they put together that I'm super pumped about. It's Conversations with Brendan Kiely coming up on February 8th at 7 p.m. at the Melrose High School. I'll put the Google Doc for tickets. But Jess, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit more about what this is? How did this even happen? What's going on?
Sure. So I don't know if a lot of people even know who Brendan Kiely is. He is a fantastic young adult author. He is living in New York City now, but he grew up in Melrose in the Horseman neighborhood, went to high school at St. John's, and then went off and became a wonderful writer. And he has teamed up, I think a lot of people in Melrose tuned into his book that he wrote with Jason Reynolds. It was on the list for summer reading for middle school and high school kids over the last couple summers. And that's what got our attention at the Ed Foundation. So we run a Parent U series of workshops meant to engage our community in opportunities to learn together, to talk about education, and to engage as a learning community. And we were so excited about this book and Brendan's connection to Melrose, we decided to bring him in and get him reconnected with Melrose. So he's coming on February 8th to spend the day.
What are some of the things he's going to be doing? Because he'll be here all day. I'm only going to the evening. So what is he going to do throughout the day?
So he'll come in the morning. It's super cute. His parents live on the North Shore, so he's going to come in from New York City, and he actually has to borrow his mom's car to come down to Melrose, giving his secrets away. But he's going to come and spend the day at the middle school and the high school. So he'll kick off the day with an assembly in the auditorium at the middle school. And then he'll meet with small groups of kids, some focused on English, language arts, and writing, and fiction, some focused on social justice. A lot of his work revolves around using fiction to talk about social justice topics. So he'll do that throughout the day. He'll meet with our teachers at the end of the school day to talk about how educators are able to kind of use fiction and literacy as a jumping off point to talk about current events and things happening all around us. I'm excited he'll be able to share. He's been traveling across the country talking with educators about his work and about how his book can be used in classrooms. So he'll just share some of the common themes that he's seen across the country. And then after a short break in the afternoon, he'll join the rest of us for a book talk and book signing later on.
Wow.
Awesome.
Full day.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
I know you gotta all come to this.
So what's the evening program? That's the book talk.
Yeah, that's the book talk. So he'll mostly probably talk about his two most recent books. And I know this is what Lory talked with him about. She actually interviewed him and is going to share a little bit of his story, hopefully with us now, and also in an article in the paper later this week. But All American Boys is the book he wrote with Jason Reynolds. It's about, I'm going to let Lory tell this part. And then he wrote his most recent book is called The Other Talk.
Yeah.
So I know, Lory, you learned a lot about that when you talked about it with him.
Yeah, I did. Thanks for having me. I should start out by saying that. We talked at the beginning of January, and we didn't really talk about All American Boys too much. We mostly talked about his newest book, The Other Talk. And it was interesting. He said he was inspired to write this book because he started out as a teacher. So yes, he's a writer, but he actually started out as a teacher in New York City. He was working at a high school and also teaching at City University of New York, and very diverse student body. And so he was sort of learning about the experiences of his students and their families, and started to hear about something called The Talk. Didn't know too much about it, learned a little bit more in professional development, but it was really when he was touring with Jason Reynolds, his co-writer on All American Boys, that it really became something that he understood on a personal level. And basically, he says talking about racism can be hard, but kids of color, they talk about racism with their family all the time, and they have what's called the talk. And I'm not an expert on it, but basically, in a gist, it's this idea that families talk to their Black families or families of color talk to their kids about, what's going to happen when you walk out the door. There's a certain reality for you, and you need to be aware of that. And this is a conversation that white families don't have. And when he was working with his students, he realized that a lot of white families, a lot of white kids didn't even know about the talk. They didn't realize the talk even existed. So it's something that sort of sparked his interest, and he thought a lot about his own growing up in Melrose. As Jess mentioned, he grew up in Melrose, and it wasn't something that his family talked about at all. He had no idea. And so that's what triggered his interest in the newest book, The Other Talk, was sort of looking into this, this, and sort of, wanting white families especially, to know that they, I don't know, they needed to become kind of aware of their own white privilege. So
Right.
Yeah. It should be noted, I guess, that All American Boys, again, the two authors, Jason Reynolds and then Brendan as well. Jason Reynolds is an African-American writer and Brendan's a white writer. So I think, and then the story is about, an African-American and a white student who are friends, and there's a police incident. So it's very rooted in stories of today, or stories that have happened in the last couple of years, police brutality and things like that. So just to give folks who may not know the book or the story some background.
Yeah. So actually, they don't know each other actually very well at school, and so the characters toggle back and forth. So it's really fascinating. Each chapter is in the first person voice of one or the other character, and I don't want to give too much of the plot away. But to Tom's point, that they both experienced this incident, kind of similar to what Lory mentioned, two very different perspectives of what was going on at that moment, obviously, and then also how both characters kind of processed what was going on. But Jess, I know you had been proactive in doing some. It's a difficult topic generally of police brutality, but I know you had done some work in Melrose with our new police chief, Kevin Follier. Can you talk about like what those conversations were about, or is our police department involved? I know they're aware of the conversation, or
yeah. So the Melrose Ed Foundation reached out to a lot of organizations to just collaborate and try to promote the opportunity to meet with Brendan and hear directly from him about the work that he does, the important work that he does. And we wanted to make sure that we, when you look up Brendan's work, especially All American Boys, one of the first things that pops up on a Google search is the phrase police brutality. So we wanted to make sure that we were collaborating and welcoming our local police to that conversation alongside us, not having something be about police brutality, but alongside them to have this opportunity to open the conversation. So we met with Chief Follier last week. It's so great to have him in Melrose. He hasn't read the book yet, but he was eager to dive into it. Like me, he's less of a reader and more of a listener. So totally recommend the audio version of All American Boys. It's a fantastic family listen to if you have a road trip coming up or an opportunity to listen as a group. I would say middle school and older, there's definitely a little bit of language to be careful about, and the topic can be pretty heavy. But certainly middle school and older, I recommend to listen. So the chief is hoping to listen to the book, and I know that he's excited to have the school resource officers at the middle and high school join in for the assembly. And then just connect with Brendan and be available for it. So I think importantly, when these kinds of opportunities to talk about hard things come before us, we want to do that together. And I was really grateful for him giving us a little bit of time to chat with him and let him know what we were doing and welcome them to the table.
Well, I think part of what makes this also extremely unique is that Brendan is from Melrose. He probably has, he has experience growing up here. Lory, before the show started, you were talking a little bit more about what he divulged about his youth. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And he writes about this in the book, in the new book. He said that, growing up, he got into trouble. I think he used the word hooligan. And he and his friends, it wasn't anything, super major, but they definitely got into trouble. And he said they would get the weekly newspaper, and we print the newspaper prints the police log. They would kind of see it as a point of pride. Wow. If their names didn't get in there, but if their exploits did, they would sort of like tack it on someone's wall and like highlight it, and, sort of laugh about it, whatever. And, so that was his experience, but he didn't really get into trouble. It was one of those, he was doing some things he shouldn't have been doing, but it never really went beyond, a mention in the newspaper, which really contrasts, with, what happens to students, kids of color, they get into trouble, or even when it's just perceived that they're potentially going to do something, even if they're not, which is what All American Boys, that fictionalized story, looks at. So it was interesting. And I think that also played into his wanting to write the book. So,
and it can be a life-threatening situation for one and not the other. It's, it really comes to light in the book. Yeah. In the first book. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm wondering if any of the hooligan exploits involved shopping carts back
I
in the
was
early
gonna
days
say.
of Melrose. Because there seems to be a recurring epidemic in this town.
Wayward shopping carts.
I kind of thought that a little bit too.
Yeah, did not mention that specifically when we spoke, but
You should come ask him, Tom.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's on my calendar, February 8th. I'm there. Yeah.
He's gonna bring his shopping cart.
You'll have both audiences that you need. You'll have him, and you'll be able to talk directly to the police department about this.
Yeah, we got to clean up this
This
town.
important
The shop.
issue in our community.
Yes.
But I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing on the Ed Foundation. This is really interesting. I've read. I'm going to pick up both books and I'm going to try to get through both of them before Feb 8th. I started All American Boys and was riveted. It's a pretty quick and easy read. The topic isn't light, but the read is easy. So I was riveted after the first two. Like Sam said, the juxtaposed points of view was interesting.
Yeah. Well also, I was just going to just add to that the audio. I was also listening to the audiobook, and the actors who portray both characters are phenomenal. And so it's
switch over.
You should switch over. Although keep track of what track you're on.
Brendan and Jason read their own characters.
They do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Book, apparently the book Oasis. Plug independent bookstores when I can. The book Oasis in Stoneham is carrying copies. Is that right, Jess?
It is right, and they'll be at the book signing as well with copies there for Brendan to sign.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just think it's great when there's a fiction opportunity into a topic that's otherwise difficult. Because you could read about this in a nonfiction way that's just not going to be as compelling as a well-written story. So it's a good entry point into any topic, really, but this one in particular. It's great.
And you can target your audience much more directly, right? So you can write about middle school kids or high school kids by having characters who are that age, and then there's a more relatability for those kids.
Well, I think the kids was my experience and my impression. The kids always like to read about like kids that are a little bit older. So if you're targeting, and like you have to shoot like a few years older. Like the middle school kids want to read about high school life or whatever, or that's the shows they watch or the things they do. So it's interesting.
These kids are the high school basketball stars.
Oh,
right.
So it's well targeted, and any book that my son will listen to with me or read with me, and then we actually have a chance of kind of talking more about it outside of it is a great opportunity. It doesn't happen that often that he engages about school stuff willingly and excitedly about it. But we've been sitting by the fire listening, and it's nice to have that. And it gives me the excuse to bring up some things that sometimes are hard to bring up otherwise.
Right, because it feels like you're bringing it up out of the blue, right? Like there's, it's difficult. Like we're having this conversation now, right? I mean, I could go upstairs to my daughter right now and say, hey, listen, sit down. I want to talk to you about something. That's tough sometimes, to have the moment or the shared experience or the shared read, like you said, is a super helpful tool.
And then they talk about Gooch Park and Mother's Pizza. So for us living in Melrose, we can start to put a little bit of a picture to it, which is
cool.
Yeah. That's in the book. Is the story set in Melrose, or is it like a fictionalized Melrose?
It's fictional one, right?
It's Springfield, yeah. So
oh my God, every town is Springfield, yeah.
Right, Springfield or Fitchburg, whatever.
Yeah, now there's a rough and tumble setting for a story.
But there were some things in there that had some recall to the time when because there's a part in there about a march and a protest, and they're going from one location to another. Anyway, it did have some recall to the our own high school and college students organizing our Stand Up for Racial Equity. It's captive. It's so interesting to see, again, the journey that the white student goes through to get to that point, and the risks that he takes to get there. But it did really hit close to home. So when they talk about all the people that were there, and the environment that they in this book had experienced and how it was different from the one else that we had in Melrose, when we had about 1,000 people lining up Linfells Parkway, with very little resistance from authorities, really. So it was that also kind of was, I don't know, really, again, it gave me some great recall, and how we also have very passionate youth here, focusing on these same topics. So.
And we have the opportunity to keep the conversation going. A lot of times people organize and get active right after something happens.
Mm-hmm.
Even nationally, not necessarily locally.
Right.
And I think this just, maybe we can, through fiction and through this connection to someone with some history in our city, bring up some conversation where we can continue to advance the work that we're all trying to do.
Yeah.
So Jess, on that point, do you see other opportunities down the road for the Melrose Ed Foundation to do more, to have other events or have other conversations? Would you see something like that happening around town?
Yeah, I think so. So we're really interested in funding work that happens by our educators or led by our educators in our schools. That's what our grants are for. And we have quite a few already. Actually, one of the 8th grade teachers is leading some work around one of Jason Reynolds' books called Stamped. It's in the English curriculum, but it's also very historical, social studies related. Our 10th grade teachers have been funded to do with a grant to do some work around isms and really developing their English curriculum to explore some deeper concepts there. So I think we're excited about that. Brendan will spend one day in the schools, but we're hoping that impact of those conversations starts and inspires some more opportunity. And then with Parent University, we're always looking for workshop topics and opportunities to engage families and caregivers to learn together. So during COVID, we hosted an online racial justice workshop series. We are interested in kind of continuing on with that. So I think those things are to come. But right now I'm really excited about hopefully getting some more grants in our next grant round, which will happen this spring from our educators to do some things in the classroom.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
When I spoke with Brendan, he said students want these conversations. So this is great to hear. He said that, these conversations are usually more difficult for adults to have. There's a sense of responsibility they feel towards being right with what they say and not wanting to say the wrong thing, not wanting to be wrong. And that's something that, he says even he, ends up falling prey to. But he said all the students that he's talked to as he's traveled around to talk about the book, they are so much conversations. They want to have them. And he said that's the kind of courage that we need to teach kids and adults need to learn from as well around these conversations. So.
Yeah.
I can't wait to meet him.
I think that's a great point. I think too often we're in the kids' way. We think we know and have more ability than we do, and we should focus sometimes more on just creating the conditions that allow them to do their thing. The kids have a lot of skills and capabilities, and they sometimes need a little guidance,
and passion and commitment to these issues. Like they're the ones that, they're living this. So.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
awesome. Well, thanks for putting this together.
Yeah.
February 8th, 7 p.m. at the high school.
Yes, February 8th. All right, we're putting a link in there. And on that topic, there's always lots of great, very cool. Yeah, totally. Yeah. There's lots of great work happening in Melrose.
Hi, Peter.
There's great work happening in Melrose and great events that are happening around town all the time. So just a few things that are coming up this week ahead and weekend. You can check out talented Melrose drama students at the middle school Melrose Drama Cabaret. And then coming up a little bit later, Brooklyn Lake Productions is doing Peter and the Starcatcher, February 3rd and 4th at Melrose Highlands Congregational. This Friday, you can adults can make your own teacup at this new ceramic studio at Follow Your Art. Yeah.
Why
And
am I
then
just
on
hearing about
Saturday-
this now? This teacup
Right?
thing.
Yeah.
I just saw it. It's like last minute. They just started advertising it today. So I just saw it and I
Wait
just
a minute.
put it
Wait a
on-
minute. Attention,
Breaking.
citizens of Melrose. Free teacups, basically, is what you're telling me.
Well,
And then maybe if you don't like the way it came out, you can donate it to the bridge.
to the bridge, yeah.
Someone will love it.
Top prize at this year's trivia page is going to be
a floppy cup.
We'll all go try to make teacups, and then we'll put together an LTMM mismatched, barely holds water teacup set that we'll probably donate.
Wait a minute. I got it. I'm going to make a teacup. I'm going to tell a story about it the next day, and then I'm going to donate it to the bridge.
Donate it. I like this. I see it's all coming together. Yes, Tom is right. You can join in community storytelling the next night on Saturday at Follow Your Art with Rilda Kissel and Christopher Robinson. You can also, after that, you can go play board games at the Worklery. They're having
That's
board
Friday
game
night, I think. I think that's
No,
Friday
I think
night.
is it Friday?
I think it's Friday night.
Yeah, you're right. Friday. You can on Saturday on the weekend, you can have baked goods and get your bike tuned up for free at the Loop, the new business of the Loop, and you can make bracelets on this weekend, I think, at the new paper and clay pop-up store that's up now at Cedar Park. So lots of cool things and more. You can check all of this out at the new Melrose Creative Alliance website, and you can sign up to have all that stuff delivered right to your inbox for free.
Jeez Louise. I wouldn't know what's
kidding.
going on without you,
You
Denny.
need a nap.
It's good stuff going on. That's all. We have a lot of cool stuff happening in Melrose.
Wow, it's a great time to be alive in the city of Melrose. I'll tell you
Yes,
that.
it is. All right. Lots going on.
Okay.
And you can dance right here and right now.
All right. We'll see you at all those events, and we'll see you around town.
Denny!
Laugh. I was just getting something.
She's getting something.
So,
Love it.